Welcome to another Author Wisdom podcast. We have Kristen Willeumier with us today. She's a PhD neuroscientist and author of Biohack Your Brain. So we're going to talk about biohacking today, one of my favorite topics. This pod is presented by podpire.com. If you want to start your own podcast, you can go to podpire.com. Kristen, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. It's truly an honor. So what am I up to these days? I just started a 501c3 Neuroscience Research Center called the Willeumier Center for Advanced Research in Neurotrauma, where I will be doing prospective longitudinal studies in people who are struggling with psychological as well as physical neurotrauma, and using advanced technologies to help restore and rehabilitate brain function, because that is my passion.
There you go. And how did that become your passion? How did you get interested by the brain at first?
So I've been in the field of neuroscience and studying the brain for 25 years. It was born out of me being an athlete. So I grew up in the Midwest showing horses competitively in the hunter jumpers, and I was riding at a stables that had a lot of Olympic athletes. My trainer's son ended up being a reserve on the US Olympic team. So I loved jumping and showing horses, and like every young aspiring athlete, you dream of going to the Olympics. So I spent 10 years showing horses around the United States, and with the dream, again, of becoming an Olympian, and really focused on athletes and performance enhancement. So that's the direction that I thought I was going to initially go in. I graduated from college in the early 90s. And at that time, so the field that I would really go into would be sports psychology. That was sort of the initial interest. At that time, there weren't a lot of sports psychologists or people who were going into that field tended to be athletic trainers. And my passion was more focused on the brain and how the brain was working. And I wanted to delve sort of more into the organic function of the brain. And I will tell you, at the time, I happened to be dating somebody who had attended Harvard Medical School and was a team doctor for the New England Patriots. And he had a profound impact on my career trajectory. I was initially planning to go to medical school. He saw that I had an aptitude for science and sort of redirected my career focus. So I decided to pursue a master's degree in physiological science over at UCLA, with the goal of either taking that and going into the research field. So I actually worked in neuroendocrinology first, fell in love with research. If I didn't love research, I was going to use the master's degree and then just pivot and go to medical school. But I am a research scientist at heart. I love doing basic science and fell in love with being in the laboratory, which is very much an introverted kind of profession. It's very different from the norm, but I found that I really loved it and decided that I wanted to take a deeper dive into what was going on in the brain. So I concurrently did a master's degree and PhD in neurobiology over at UCLA, studying Parkinson's disease. And I focused on a gene that becomes mutated in the young onset form of Parkinson's disease, and wanting to understand what goes on, what's the dysfunction that happens at the level of the single cell. I did not know at the time that my dad would later be diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So that was a really sort of fascinating full circle event where I truly think in life we're always placed where we're meant to be. And here I am now working in the field where I study neurological disorders. But back at that time, studied Parkinson's disease, did a postdoctoral fellowship over at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in the Department of Neurology, continued that work. My mentor left and moved his entire lab to the University of Utah. And that's when my career sort of took another pivot, and I became the director of neuroimaging research for the Amen Clinics, which the Amen Clinics is a large, nationally recognized outpatient psychiatric center with 11 locations throughout the United States, What's wonderful about that opportunity is that patients who come to the Amen clinics are typically going there because they have complex psychiatric disorders, which means they tend to have multiple psychiatric diagnoses, and they would like to use neuroimaging, whether that's electrical or functional, to understand what's going on in the brain to really target and treat those disorders. So in taking on that position, I helped Dr. Amen create what is now one of the world's largest brain SPECT imaging databases. So it currently has over 200,000 brain scans. But when I was first working there, my first clinical trial was in professional football players. And we asked the question, does playing football cause long-term brain damage? This was happening back in 2009 when it wasn't as big in the media as it is now. The first study was in 100 professional athletes. After working with the first 15, we knew we couldn't just study the neurotrauma component. We needed to do a brain rehabilitation component. And that was really revelatory to me because it was the first time that I could see objectively when you did very specific dietary and lifestyle interventions combined with medications and advanced technologies that we have, we could make meaningful changes in the organic function of the brain that can be seen on neuroimaging. And that has forever changed the trajectory of sort of my passion and what I want to do, which is now focused on helping people who struggle with neurotrauma. Again, whether it's psychological, so if you're a combat veteran, firefighter, police officer, have been impacted by domestic violence, or physical trauma, whether that's motor vehicle accident, whether it's participating in collision-based sports where you're exposed to repetitive head trauma, those sort of traumas that happen in the brain. How do we restore and rehabilitate the brain so that individual has a better quality of life? And that's my passion. And then that's why the Neuroscience Research Center got formed.
Fascinating. I want to talk about your book. How do you biohack yourself nowadays?
Oh, are you asking me personally? What
Right.
do I do for biohacking? So for biohacking, for everybody who's listening, who isn't aware of it, biohacking these are the things that we do to change the physiology of the brain, right? The structure and function. What are the sort of basic lifestyle changes that you can do? So for me, every day, it starts with proper hydration, right? You want to get, at least for a woman, you want to get 90 ounces of water a day. So I drink at least 1.5 to 3 liters of water per day. So right, appropriate hydration leads to better cognitive function. Number 2, I follow the Mediterranean meal plan. This is what I've taught people in the clinical setting. It's got the evidence-based medicine to show, or the evidence-based research to show that it improves cardiovascular function and slows neurological decline. So to that end, I have a very specific way that I prefer to eat, which is I make sure I have at least 2 servings of berries, blueberries, raspberries, per day, 3 servings of green leafy vegetables. So I get that through doing green juicing every single day, which I've done religiously probably for 20 years now. I get the right amount of lean protein in fish at least 2 times a week. And I have a very specific way that I get legumes, nuts, and seeds in. So we've got the dietary piece covered. That's what I do daily. Then the supplement piece. So I have a very specific regimen of supplements that is really tailored towards the way my brain is functioning. But I have a brain-directed multivitamin that I do. Excuse me. I do omega-3 fatty acids daily, vitamin C, vitamin B with folate. I do spirulina to really improve, again, spirulina is like a great multivitamin, heavy metal chelator, but it also provides omega-3 fatty acids, a great probiotic daily to support the gut microbiome. So that's part of my supplement regimen. And then I actually have a brain directed supplement that I take. So I've got that every day. I do exercise, so physical exercise to keep you cognitively sharp, keep blood flowing to the brain. So every day I run. I usually do jump roping. I'll alternate with Pilates. Um, so I make sure I get different kinds of exercise in. And then I always take 20 minutes to do a guided meditation. So I have been meditating for 25 years. I was trained in a very specific type of meditation practice called Kirtan Kriya yoga, and have worked with monks and have done, sort of long-term study in the meditative space. I currently use a particular app. So every morning I will get up and listen to a particular meditation app for 20 minutes so I can sort of check that box and get it done. And then, I'm off and doing my day. So those are the things that I will do in the morning. But another piece that I do that a lot of people can't do unless they're actually going to a clinical setting, I use what's called quantitative EEG to create brain maps for people. So I have done it on myself, and I can use what's called SW Loretta neurofeedback to retrain brain networks. So I can train the anxiety network, attention network, cognition network, salience network, default mode network. I can pick which network I need to train based on how my brain is functioning compared to a normative database. So I will do that for myself, just to keep myself under sort of low stress and, being cognitively sharp. And I do have another little brain biohack that I use. There's a company called Apollo Neuro, and they have a great wearable that I will use that helps to calm the sympathetic nervous system. So it's a little watch that I can wear. And whenever I feel like I'm under stress or stressful situation, I can use the watch. I just turn it on. It creates a vibration in the body that helps to calm it. So
Fascinating.
those are what I do for biohacking.
Took some notes there. I'm gonna check out Apollo Neuro. Your day to day, how do you segment it? Because you're a speaker, you're a researcher, you're an author, you do lots of things. So how do you segment your time?
That's a great question. I do wear many hats. So the way I do it with research studies, like I have one that I'm going to be doing in high school football players. So I have to write the IRB and get all of the pieces together for that for the fall. So right now, I'm working on that piece. I do brain health consultations and work with patients throughout the day. Yeah, I do run and do speaking engagements and continue to help promote the book and really do the awareness about brain health because I think it's really important. So I am, every day is different. And because we are, coming out of a pandemic, the beautiful thing is I can do a lot of things virtually. I can work with people all over the world virtually to help them with their brain health, send brain health assessments, right? And so that's been really fun. But again, day to day, I also work with people doing the EEG and neurofeedback, and that those neurofeedback sessions can take 20 to 30 sessions to work with people. So it's it can be chaotic.
Right. And what about this year? Like
hmm
you have set some new goals for yourself. Will it be a bit more research this year? Do you feel that the book has taken you in some direction as well?
Yeah, the book is wonderful because it's now published in 8 languages. So I speak to people from various countries. And what, what I really realize is a lot of people aren't privy to brain imaging and what brain imaging research can tell us about the brain and how to take care of the brain. So that educational piece I think is really important because it's what gives the buy-in to follow the daily dietary and lifestyle modifications that I talk about in the book or that you and I just discussed now. So I feel like that piece is really important, and Biohack Your Brain will be around indefinitely, and there will be probably Biohack Your Brain 2 and 3. Research is my love. And I truly am passionate about helping people who struggle with mental health issues. Having worked in a psychiatric setting where most people who walk through our door have, I don't like to use the word failed, but they have been with 3 previous treatment providers and have not had success in being able to treat their mental health issues. Because a lot of times a mental health issue, I say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? You have to really establish a relationship with somebody and work with them. I actually help people strategize on how to best work with how their brain is wired and what particular issue they're struggling with. Um, and I get great joy in finding people have improved quality of life, because there's a lot of people struggling with neurological and psychiatric disorders. So because that's my love, that is why I set up this research center to continue to do the research um, longitudinally, meaning following these groups or populations of people, whether they're firefighters, police officers, veterans, athletes exposed to repetitive head trauma, what happens to them over time. It's There's sort of a gap in the research per se in this particular area, and I'm really driven probably for the next 3 decades, 4 decades, depending on how long I am blessed to be on this planet, that I will be focused on that mission, right? Following these people and really helping to show what is possible in terms of brain restoration and rehabilitation, because I've seen it in the clinical setting, and because of the setting that I worked in, I would say, sort of have advanced or pioneered um, research. I mean, using hyperbaric oxygen therapy and being able to show it makes measurable changes in perfusion in the brain. Um, that's innovative. Not a lot of people have done that. They don't see it. They might go in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and think maybe this is helping. I've had the benefit of seeing the empirical data, publishing the research studies. So I want to take that love of helping people restore and rehabilitate their brain. Like that's my goal. That's my big purpose in life. And maybe it's because, I had a father who um, was in 3 occupations that were very stressful. He was a combat helicopter pilot in the US Marine Corps, did 2 tours, one in Vietnam, one in Desert Storm, 30-year pilot for Pan American, and 30-year firefighter. So he did both jobs concurrently. Those are the 3 most stressful jobs anyone can have. And there's a lot of exposure to environmental toxins. So 3 jobs with 3 sort of occupational risk factors. And he started having neurological issues in his 50s and died with Parkinson's at 78. So I really want to focus on some of these occupations that have psychological risks, and sort of neurotrauma risks, and how far can we push the envelope in the brain rehabilitation, brain restoration space?
Do you feel that one of your colleague, Andrew Huberman,
Mhm.
has taken an interesting path? It seems that he's let go of research and is now focused on spreading the word and interviewing people. What do you think about that path?
I love it. As a fellow neurobiologist, so he and I are trained in the exact same way. I love what he's doing. I think public awareness is really important. Because I've been in this field 25 years, nobody was talking about meditation and its impacts on the brain. And now we have a whole collective movement of people who are engaging in meditation practices, which, number one, can quiet the mind, help with the restless thoughts, can help decrease cortisol, can help increase brain volume when practiced consistently over time. I love that he's taken the mantle to help really step up and show people that they can take care of their brain health and their mental health. It's accessible. Yes, there's medical centers, like you can come and work with somebody like me, or psychiatrist or neurologist, but a lot of people can't afford it. A lot of people can't afford to have their brain scanned. A lot of people might not be able to find the kind of practitioners that can really help them. And I feel Andrew Huberman provides an opportunity for people to empower them to take care of their brain health. And I always say, when you take care of your brain health, your mental health is going to improve. So he's doing a great service for our community. And what I love is he's relatable, accessible, right? A lot of men can relate to him, a lot of women can relate to him. So he sort of stepped out of sort of that there's a role in academia that you play, and then there's like a humility and an authenticity to him that makes him so beloved. So I think it's wonderful.
Cool guy. And you're doing a lot of cool stuff as well. Pretty
Thank
sure
you.
you will get to have a humongous impact. And yeah, I'll read your research. It's quite fascinating. Where can people find out more about you until then?
Yeah, so people are welcome to find me on my website at drwilleumier.com. And I have an area where if anybody has any questions, they can reach out. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And this has been wonderful. Have you learned more about biohacking from me? I know you've read all the biohacking books.
I don't know. I read your book some time ago, so couldn't tell, but I've been researching so much. You know, my first business was a nootropic, so I've been
Uh-huh.
obsessed with the brain hacket since a decade now. So, but yeah, I probably did. That's 100% true. I always learn from everyone. So thank you so much, Dr. Kristen. We'll catch you on the flip.